and welcome. My name is Paula Rowe, and this is Global Unified Breathing. And today, if you notice underneath me, it says another banner. And I'm not very technologically advanced, and I'm not sure how to change that right now. So I'm just going to move forward. This is Global Unified Breathing. I am Paula Rowe, and welcome. And you can go over to globalunifiedbreathing.com, and there's information and membership and a contact page. If you have any questions and you'd like to get in touch with me. Also, Soul Awakening Project is another baby of mine. You also can get in touch with me there. So before we go any further into the secrets of life is in the breath. And the first time I heard that, I said, what? Didn't make any sense. So, but I did find out later. So right now, what I'd like to do, as always, is to say a prayer and unify and focus our energy together. So if you would, please participate with me. Just close your eyes for a minute and hear my voice. Beloved Mother, Father God, in the full power and authority of the beloved presence of God, I am. We now ask for your divine order in all our homes, families, business affairs, in all governments around the world. With this divine decree, we ask all the sons and daughters to awaken to your divine will, to unify and to know the truth. We ask to receive the full power of your protection that can only come from your omnipresence, all that is. And so it is. And thank you. So today I wanted to talk about the mystery of the breath. And as it continues, as I try to share with you every week about maybe some ideas that you didn't know about, that what your own breath is all about. And so one of the first actions in life is our in-breath. And our last action in our life is our out-breath. But most of us are not awake to our breath at all. We go through life simply mechanically breathing and never considering that this is what the Hindu sages call our life force, prana, breath. And with that understanding, it's a breath, the prana breath, which means the breath of God, is that they say God creates universes with his breath. This force, this life force, is the same divine consciousness that has created all. An example of the breath being able to bring you into a new state of consciousness is the stories of the Buddha. The example of the Buddha is he is one of the most famous Eastern masters who said he became enlightened by meditating on his breath, which meant quieting the mind. And for most of us, I don't know, for me especially, my experience is all I can talk about, is I just wanted the chatter, the mind chatter, to slow down, turn off, or at least let me have moments of peace. And my first experiences, especially after my car accident in the beginning, when I was first starting to learn about breath work, my mind was very active, and active in the way that it was always experiencing and pointing out things that eventually my feelings turned into pretty negative ones, and fearful based feelings started to come. So when I heard that my breath with controlled breathing and deep breathing would quiet that down, it didn't make sense. At that time, I was trying to still do my meditations, but that wasn't easy either. But what happened was I would have a egg timer, and for 15 minutes every single day, I would observe my breath. And that is what the Buddha said, is that by just observing our breath, not focusing on how we're breathing, our in-breath, our out-breath, but observing quietly, focusing, if our attention goes away, bringing it back to the breath, is that we would start to realize that mastering that quieting of the mind, this kind of beginning, can be very beneficial for stressors of the day. And right now, we all might have a few of those stressors that we would want to learn a technique that could help us be more focused. We could come out of this 15 minutes, which I did, calmer. I felt rested. I felt re-energized. I felt reinvigorated. And this method became something that was taken also into some corporations and companies that realized that if they, instead of at lunchtime, when everybody would go and fill their body full of food, or eat something that maybe they didn't even realize triggered something for them to start feeling sleepy, they brought in different companies that did breath work, and realized that everybody was performing differently when they would spend 15 minutes focusing on the breath. It was like a midday picker-upper that really worked. And I think one of the first companies was IBM that did this. That was quite a long time ago that this was something that started to go through mainstream. And it really helped the efficiency of the workers. Instead of falling asleep and struggling to stay awake, they would realize that they were being able to start the day anew, which is really a good thing to do with our breath. So this is something that all of us can try for 15 minutes every day, is just quiet your surroundings and just close your eyes and just observe your inhale and exhale. It doesn't matter how deeply, but this is a beginning practice, especially for those people that are afraid to really breathe deeply and fully, because the breath will activate suppressed energy that you're trying to maybe push back down into the body. So be aware that it's not about deep breathing, but it's about observing the breath. That is the first stage, and it's very beneficial to feeling renewed and rejuvenated. So instead of struggling through your day to stay awake maybe at midday or napping, you could try the breathing and how that, and let me know how that works out for you. So we're not just our bodies and our emotions and our thoughts, but it is a responsibility when we start to learn about our breath that we have to realize that we've been given a spiritual tool, a gift, a blessing, a grace from Divine Creator, that we can experience many levels of who we are. But first, the amazing thing about focusing on the meditating with just watching our breath is that after a while, what will start to happen is the breath will start to chatter louder, with the mind going all over the place. And what happens is we start to realize that we're not all those thoughts. That's just the mind. That is something that's just happening. And it is the thing that keeps us away from truly identifying who and what we are, because behind that, in the quietness of that, is the I, the observer. So when we become the observer to our own breath, hi Cindy, when we become the observer to our own breath, it's really a quieting and becoming closer to identifying and having that moment of self-realization. We're not pushed around by our breath, where it almost is like tyrannizing us, until we become aware that the observer is what we want to learn about. And it's a really simple technique that can take us in there. And that is the beginning of understanding just how powerful our breath is. God experiences everything through the spirit of life, which is carried on the breath. Healing is carried on the breath. Telepathy is carried on the breath. And most importantly, spiritual grace is carried on the breath. Many possibilities and a deeper understanding of the breath comes when we challenge ourselves to continually awaken even more. Your breath is a teaching tool for you. One of the most profound ways that the breath taught me about life was the understanding by one of my teachers of the concept of the law of the circle. So it's a universal law, it's a cosmic law, it's something that we're all part of. And what that means is literally is that we're responsible for our breath, for how we breathe, which is our connection to source, and how we utilize that life force energy. The breath taught me about responsibility and how to choose how we use our life force. We'll experience the results of our actions, which means the energy that we expend in our thinking, feeling, and the things that we say and do not only affect the whole of creation, but eventually it returns to us in our everyday experiences. So this was the part where I was now in my early years of breath work learning about the concept of all thought is creative. My thoughts are creating. But we really don't understand what that really means until we start breathing, because what happens is we start to see the layering. We start to see that consciously I can say I am sitting here, but the unconscious mind is more active, has more power behind it, it's closer to spirit. And then there's the superconscious mind, which is totally absorbed within the Spirit of God. These are all available to us at all times. It's quite incredible when we realize and how much power is behind our breath and in our breath and through our breath. So not only affecting the whole of creation, but know this as the law of the circle, reaping what we sow. In metaphysical terms, this is referred to as the out-breath in the in-breath of our Mother, Father, God. This law reflects back to us the sum total of our past experiences, and whatever we are currently empowering with our thoughts, feelings, and actions is also empowered by our breath. So think about that. Our life force. Now, this doesn't mean that we're victims being pushed around by life. Through the breath, we become aware and we discover that there is a teaching going on. And we start to realize that the thoughts, as they move us here and there, back and forth, if we keep focused on this breath, realizing the law of the circle, what am I thinking about? What am I feeling? What am I putting out? What am I empowering? Is very important. What am I empowering? Eventually developing the observer, the permanent I. Without this, when we will always be led astray. Without this, we will be led back and forth. We'll have moments of peace, but we will never fully find that peace beyond that superconscious mind piece, that knowing, that gift that's in there that I've talked about before, that completely changed my whole life, my thinking, my actions, my belief systems, what I was empowering, and why I needed to know that was because I was empowering things that weren't feeling good, that weren't ending up good, and some of these things were coming from, for lack of any other way to put it, whether you believe it or not, other lifetimes, other existences. They were empowered so strongly in an unconscious life with no breathing. Our breath controls the emotional states that we're in. That's why people walk around half breathing, half dead, unconscious, not awake, but saying they're awake. Being awake means we're being aware of our breath. That's what this was all about. Global unified breathing was all about learning that is the awakened state. The awakened state of understanding the power of our own breath. That permanent I. That awareness can be there or not. It will always return us to our lower nature in the chattering mind if we don't discover eventually how to breathe. So global unified breathing was born out of all my years of breathing consistently, constantly, and breathing others, and discovering this avenue, this I, this observer of life that brought about, don't sweat the small stuff, that brought about, it's not what you think it is, that brought about, I'm not just all my feelings, that brought about, maybe I can change, that brought about, I know I can change, that brought about, the love, and open. Remember what I was telling you before about where this avenue of breath moves. Inhaling, the breath goes around the heart chambers. There's a reason God directed our breath from Him, her, the source, breathing, massaging the heart. The chambers of the heart are filled with this force. And when this happens, there's a reason, especially now more than ever, we need to unify and open our hearts. And one of the ways that we do that is through our breath. By bringing our breath fully, freely, completely, deeply through the area around the heart, all those chambers, letting it expand our energy and opening our hearts. That is one of the first things that happens to all the clients that breathe, is that heart, that vault, that lockdown that a lot of people have over their hearts, that all those preconceived ideas about it, it's not safe, they're afraid, love hurts, God hurts, life hurts, breath hurts. That's the first thing that starts to happen with my clients, is the breath itself starts to crack open the heart. And yes, you would be amazed at how many people are afraid of their own breath. It's sad, but it's true. There's such power behind it because it unifies you. Remember, there's only one breath. We're all breathing the same air. We're all unifying, whether we believe it, know it, or like it. The beauty of it is God. This is God's world. This is God's breath. But can you imagine the change that can happen when we're all saying, let's breathe on a color, a frequency, a vibration today? When before, all I would do some days was breathe on freedom. Freedom. That was it. I wanted freedom. Freedom from the mind chatter. Freedom from all the bonds that held me, all those bondages that were phantoms. Freedom. And clearing that out of the body at a cellular level, when that starts to occur, you really become aware of how much power there is in your breath. And I never wanted to stop breathing once I started. It was an amazing thing because remember, my beginnings were after the car wreck, and my memory and the amount of paranoia that existed within my body, mind, and spirit. I can remember how horrible that was. And I didn't know. And they told me they didn't know. So I'm so fortunate to have come across breath work. And it led me out of those dark dungeons that were in my mind and led me into freedom. Amazing, just amazing to me. So the chat's open. If you have any questions, please reach out right now. I'm really grateful for all of you that joined in today and insightful conversations. I don't know what happened there, but it doesn't really matter. This is God's agenda. And all I know is that I'm trying to share my message, my life, and my experiences. All I can share is what I've experienced. Is global unified breathing is here for us to unify through the breath. The more of us that come together through the breath and experience freedom through our breath, the more we share with others about how that's done. So remember also, once we become aware of our thoughts, our feelings, and the actions and the law of the circle, that whatever we're putting out, whatever we're empowering, is going to make its way eventually back to you. So when that happens, we want to have all those negativities neutralized. We want to have all those wounds forgiven. We want to have that energy, that frequency of divine grace running through our breath. That empowering the divine forgiveness, which leads into a life of divine neutrality, understanding. Now we're talking about opening up the superconscious mind, where divine neutrality is, it just is. Not all these words. It's not all words. Sometimes it's a state of just being. And that state of just being is quite incredible. So I want to thank everybody for being here. And please go over to Global Unified Breathing if you have any questions or comments or concerns, and let me know.